Shalom, Kahala Yahweh, Bashem Shai, Bashem Kokodash. Double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect, for the house of David be born again in this generation. And Shalom to the 130 Yasharallah, who today are known as the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, who before losing our true heritage, we were known as, and still are, the true Hebrew Israelites of the Holy Bible. In today's lesson, we're going to talk about the war in heaven that's going to take place as prophesied by the Bible and what it actually means to us in these modern times, right? Well, before we get into that, let's go and read this scripture. This is Revelations 12:7. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. Now, when it talks about the war in heaven, this isn't talking about like what you see in that movie Immortals, where you see a bunch of men floating in the skies amongst the clouds fighting each other. No, this is actually talking about the coming space, well, really high altitude war that's going to take place between the military powers of this world, namely those led by the Edomites. And I say the Edomites, I'm referring to the Caucasian race, right through their NATO and westernized allies, right? And the war they're going to have against what is going to be perceived as the invading UFOs, which are in fact the angels and the Messiah returning back to Earth to claim the Earth in rulership, right? And to save us Israelites, right? Now, this is why right now you're seeing such an immense buildup of space, right? Because the thing is this whole narrative that the world is starting to basically turn against each other, and basically start there's all these wars that are being built up for, like that will eventually happen. But the real cause of it is that all these nations, right, namely the Edomite nations, America, England, Australia, France, and basically all the Edomite empires are basically trying to prepare to meet their maker, okay, to meet the Messiah of the Bible, right, whose true Hebrew name is Yahweh Shai, which is Hebrew for he is, okay, because this is the true thing going on right now, the true narrative, right? This is why, even though you have nations who seem to be against each other, the point being is that all these nations, even though they're trying to cut in line in front of each other to be the next rulers of the world, they're all working in tandem when it comes to the overall agenda to defend their world against the coming invaders, right? That being God and the angels. But let's watch this real quick, just so you can get an idea of just what is being built by these Edomites and their allies.
For American Military News, this is On the Radar. Beijing is about to employ space technology so advanced that it can only be operated by artificial intelligence. In other words, it's too complex to be understood by the human brain. The space race is about to become a full-blown arms race, and it's starting to look like something straight out of Star Wars. According to the South China Morning Post, the Chinese have developed an artificial intelligence satellite that can launch a full-scale battle so vast and complex it can only be controlled by a motherboard in space. Utilizing hundreds of mini-satellite drones called CubeSats, the space weapons are so deadly and precise they can hunt down, swarm, and destroy enemy targets within minutes. The leading researcher for the project claims that CubeSats, which only weighs 2.2 pounds, could be used to patrol and defend against attacks from rogue forces in space using sophisticated AI algorithms that tell the drone when and how to attack. Researchers claim that they can instruct up to 4 motherboards to attack 9 hostile targets in less than a day. When put to the test, the Chinese claim the algorithm will be able to instruct CubeSats to destroy enemy targets within 4 minutes, 227 times faster than a generic algorithm. In addition to being deadly, the CubeSats are extremely efficient and can plot routes that require minimum use of fuel and energy. The news of the CubeSats comes as Beijing claims it has developed another anti-satellite AI system that has mastered the art of deception and capture. A trial of the system found AI controlled 3 small satellites that have the ability to seize high-value targets. China has also launched an AI drone mothership able to operate and launch military attacks autonomously. According to the Chinese, the vessel is designed for maritime research, but there are concerns that the ship could be used to launch attacks against the U.S. Navy. Beijing has invested heavily into AI drone warfare over the past decade as they aim to achieve their goal of military parity with the United States by 2049. As reported earlier by On the Radar, the U.S. Space Force has a mini fleet of at least 2 unmanned X-37B space planes that have been flying secret missions since 2010. The mystery surrounding the X-37B program prompted the Russian military to claim that apart from carrying out surveillance, the space plane is able to launch nuclear weapons.
At a closed session of one of the big accounting firms. And he said this to the session, and it was leaked out later. He said, you'd be surprised how much money is going to space that isn't on the budget. He said there's $20 trillion going into space that isn't on the budget. $20 trillion.
Ouch!
Now, everything that's going into space that we know about, GPS satellites, surveillance satellites, all of those things are on the budget. If there's 20 additional trillion going into space, it means those are anti-ballistic missiles, I think, that are there so that the U.S. can say or thumb their nose at the blackmail and say, no, we're not going to accept your blackmail.
So as you've seen in these videos, the first one just being the building up that China necessarily is doing, and if China is doing that, you could bet your bottom dollar that the other spacefaring nations are also, arming themselves to that point. And what that man that you see in that second video, Joel Skousen, said, there is a hidden or black-funded $20 trillion that is going into space defense alone, right? Now, I got that video, the second video, from the brother Judah Israel, I believe is his channel. He's from England. Does some great videos, very edified. I'll put a link to this video. It is an eye-opening video, especially with what that man Joel Skousen says. And let's just read real quick to find out who that man is, so that way you understand. It isn't just some random, old, Edomite. This guy knows a bit of things. It says, Joel M. Skousen is a political commentator on the philosophy and law and constitutional theory. It says, Skousen, born in San Diego, raised in Oregon, served in the United States Marine Corps fighter pilot during the Vietnam era. During the 1980s, Skousen was the chairman of the Conservative National Committee, so he is well connected politically, and I believe he also stumped for Ron Paul during his presidency. Not too sure though about that. He was also executive editor of the Conservative Digest, right? Skousen is the founder and chief editor of World Affairs Brief, a weekly news analyst service. Some of Skousen's views are controversial. He made the case that the fall of communism was also, as claimed by KGB defector Anatoly Golitsyn, a carefully crafted deception meant to gain Western aid and technology transfers that would eventually end in a resurgence of the Russian threat. In his weekly briefing, Skousen has also written extensively about the evidence of conspiracy by government to cover up its own involvement in numerous black operations such as JFK assassination, the Oklahoma City bombing, and so on and so on. So this man, he knows what's going on, and he's speaking truth to power, right? So not only is he, heavily politically connected, but he also, has he deals in philosophy of law and constitutional theory. So this man knows the Babylonian system, right? So the things he was saying, right, aren't just things that just came into his mind. These are things that he's researched or been basically led in on. Okay, So this just shows you, man, that Esau is spending massive amounts of money getting ready for the second coming of the Messiah. Why is that? Well, because the signs are evident that we are about to, witness the second coming of the Messiah, right? And when the Messiah comes, these devils know that that's not going to be good news for them. This is why they're spending all their money on things like what you're seeing here: molten metal cannon fire, laser guns, Russian nodule missiles, weaponized asteroids, United States Space Force crafts, rods from God, right? And Russian missiles. All these things are all being set up and used to prepare to try to fight against the Lord, right? This is what it talks about in Revelation, right? When it talks about that there was war in heaven, right? Because Michael, the archangel, right, the captain of the angels, right? He, and along with the rest of the angels, are going to fight against the dragon. And who is that dragon? Well, the dragon would be none other than your so-called white man, right? The Caucasian race, right? They are the serpent that was in the Garden of Eden, which throughout, over history, have evolved and grown into such a huge, menacing, beast, as the Bible describes him, because he has devoured the whole world, right? And that's why the Lord describes him as the dragon that's going to fight against the angels, right? And what's going to happen to the dragon? With all this money that he's dumping into this, all the secrecy he's putting behind his agendas, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not. Neither was their place found anymore in heaven, right? So the thing is not only are they going to lose when the Lord returns and they're going to go off, fight against them, but they're going to lose not only their place in heaven, but upon the face of the earth. Their place, which was in the place of rulership here upon earth, is going to be done for, right? They're going to be taken out of their reign, right? This is why the Bible says, "Come and sit in the dust. There is no throne for thee," right? Because ultimately that's the beginning of the end for the Edomite Empire. And this is why, yes, right now there is an orchestrated effort to systematically destroy the world economic system as we know it by the hands of Esau, but it is being done by the will of the Lord. You see, the Lord has these Edomites in a trick bag. He's making them think that by them pulling off these agendas and doing all these different things, trying to trick everybody into following new policies and laws and ways of life, and ultimately, just dumping massive amounts of treasure into, weaponizing space. He literally thinks he's going to be able to kill off the Israelites upon earth. That's us Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and defeat God when he returns, right? He thinks he has a chance. Now, that being said, let's just see what happens when military has to try to fight against these chariots. That right there was the Iranian military trying to shoot down a chariot, right? And there's been many videos showing military men coming out admitting that there's been increased sightings of these what they refer to as UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, right? Basically UFOs, right? Which we understand are the chariots. These are the angels of the Lord coming in and basically keeping an eye and reporting back to the Lord of what's going on. Because again, remember, the Lord is causing the armies of the world to be gathered there in the Middle East, right? That's by the will of the Lord, and because it's the will of the Lord, the angels themselves are the ones who are orchestrating and keeping an eye on things, because that's what they're ultimately gonna, because they got to make sure that everything falls according to the Lord's command. Okay, this is Daniel 8:25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Right? So right here it's talking about these Edomites, man. Daniel was giving a prophecy about how when the Edomites come in power, what they're going to do, how they're going to destroy many people and take over nations by their bureaucracy, by their policies, and by peace, right? Destroy many, right? This is what the whole pandemic's been about, right? They're out here making it seem as if they're trying to help everybody. They're doing what's in your best interest, though they won't cure world hunger or give food to starving kids, or take care of all these other things that are needed, but they're gonna bend over backwards to pay for the snake bites, so that way everybody can get these life-saving, bites, But hey, a lot of people are gonna fall by that stumbling block, man. They're not gonna see what's really going on, and they're gonna and I'm gonna say, and by peace shall destroy many. But here's the point I wanted to get, that he's going to stand up against the prince of princes. What does that mean? That means that these Edomites, they're going to fight against the prince of princes. And who is the prince of princes? That is the Messiah. That's Yahweh Shai, right? The Son of God, right? But he shall be broken without hand. And what is this talking about? Well, looky here. Let's go and watch this created video which depicts what was described by a military man, how these UFOs, when they would launch nuclear missiles to test them, how sometimes UFOs would show up and basically disable them, right? This man explained how when they fought it, that they seen on the video a chariot, fly right by, shoot a beam at it, and all of a sudden the nuclear missile went out of control and blew up, right? Not detonated, but it simply just fell out of the sky, right? And that's all. This is the power that these Edomites are going to face, man. And it tells you, man. So besides just from the records and us knowing what these devils have in their pockets and understanding, that the Bible says they're not going to prevail. Let's go and get a very clear example of what is going to actually happen, right? When the Lord returns, right? This isn't necessarily happening in the higher heaven. This is going to happen in the lower heaven, which is here upon earth, right? This is a more intimate, visual of what's going to happen, right? This second Ezra's 13:5. And after this, I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men without number from the four winds of the heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Right? And this right here talking about the multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven. This is talking about all the military personnel that's going to be gathered from all over the world down there in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, basically the Middle East, right outside of Israel. Okay? And what were they doing there? To subdue the man that came out of the sea. Now, is this talking about the Mediterranean Sea or the sea right there by Israel? No. The sea that is being described here is talking about space, okay? Back in the old days, in these ancient times, they used to refer to the sky, past in the heavens, what we refer to as space. They used to call that the Great Sea, right? Because they just thought it was water up there. Okay, and and why did they think that? Well, because the Bible refers to it as the waters being divided from the waters, right? And who knows? It may be, but again, we can't believe what these devils hear and their organizations, NASA, for example, which when you look up what NASA means in Hebrew, it means deception, right? So the thing is the point being is that right here where it says to subdue the man that came out of the sea, this is talking about that these military men that are going to be gathered in the Middle East are going to be there to fight against the Messiah who's coming from space. And what's going to happen to them? But I beheld, and lo, he had graven himself a great mountain and flew upon it. But I would not have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. Right? And what's this? This is talking about how this massive UFO is going to be so huge that it's going to basically be, you won't even be able to see the end of it. The end of it is going to go down into the horizon, right? It's going to be so big, right? And what Ezra saw here is that the Messiah, he was on the earth, right? But he flew up, right? If you recently seen that movie, The Immortals, at the end where that one God character, he basically pulls one of the immortals out of space and she just goes flying up. That's basically what's going to happen. The Lord is going to fly up and by his control up to his ship to basically destroy the armies that are going to prepare to try to fight against them. And what is the Lord going to do once he gets back into his ship? And after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, yet durst fight. Right? And what's that talking about? Well, that's talking about this. This is what's going to happen, man. The things that are described in the Bible are simply visions of the future, which are soon to happen. Okay, and those writings have been there for thousands of years, right? And now they are manifesting. Okay, and we understand what they mean now because the Lord has opened the understanding that is needed to get these sayings, and we can see it very plainly. As far as like the carnal side, now we can see that Esau, right, the so-called Caucasian race, is preparing to go to war with the Lord, right? But again, spoiler alert, the Lord wins and these Edomites lose badly, right? It tells you when you read the rest of 2 Ezra 13 and 5, it tells you about how there's going to be nothing but dust left of these people, man. The Lord is going to basically burn them up, burn them to a crisp, right? Or as the apostles have been saying, man, grind them to dust. Okay, that's what's ultimately in the future for these Edomites and the other heathen nations who are helping them, right, to try to fight against the Lord in the higher heavens and the heaven upon earth. But I just wanted to share that video with you, Akim. Remember, check out that video from the brother in England. The link is going to be in the description in the bottom. So check that out. So with all that, I want to give all honor and glory and praises to Yahweh, Bashem, Yahushai, Bashem, Ruach Kodesh, double honors my teachers, the apostles and elders of the great millstone. Peace and mercy to the elect. Shalom.